Here's the biggest mindset trap that people get on this. They say, I'm going to work harder and longer. That's how I'm going to build my business. Anytime you pick a finite resource as the way you're going to grow, you can only grow as much as that finite resource. If you work 8 hours a week and you say, I'm going to work 16 now, the most you can probably maximize from that is doubling your volume. The entrepreneur that you know in your life who has a big house and has tens of millions or hundreds of millions or is a billionaire, to believe that that person works 1 billion times more than the person who is not a billionaire is just not true. It's 24 hours in a day. The most successful entrepreneurs aren't working 24 hours a day. If they were working 24 hours a day and that was the key to their success, it would mean they could only be 3 times as successful as you. And it's just not what happens. They leverage everything. They take it times 1,000. This is, it's a mentality. It's a growth mindset, but it really matters. It's related to the virtues, but it's actually more pragmatic. It's more result-oriented, although all of the virtues provide results. And it is that most people in business would rather be right to their own demise than wrong to their own prosperity. This is one of the things that gets in the way. I talked about the lies that entrepreneurs think. One of is, nobody can do what I do. Another one is, you can't find good people. This is a total lie. I'm going to tell you right now why you can't find good people, because you're a bad leader. I don't know. That's why. And since none of you have personally said to me, I can't find good people, I'm not attacking anyone individually, but I can tell you that every single person who tells me you can't find good people is not a good leader, because great leaders can find good people. A big part of leading is recruiting. It doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean that great leaders just place some sort of help wanted ad someplace on ZipRecruiter and all these amazing people pop in. No, but a great leader knows that, as all entrepreneurs do, that every single thing you do, you're probably going to have to do it at a relentless level, way more than other people have. You are going to have to try different marketing. Most people will try different marketing ideas 2, 3, 4 times. They're going to try a different ad on, a digital ad. They're going to try a different print ad. They're going to try a different, whatever text ad, email campaign, whatever they're going to do. All the different ways you can market things. And they're going to go, that didn't work. They're going to say, YouTube didn't work. Google didn't work. Meta didn't work. Print didn't work. Radio didn't work. No, you just didn't work it. You literally thought that business was as simple as placing one ad or creating one sort of creative campaign and just having that work. I mean, even big brands that are highly effective will come out with horrible campaigns and run them because they know they're just going to get to the next campaign that is better. So you have to be able to experiment a lot. So when you say you can't find good people, or the only person that can do what you do, those are just not true. And they are actually based on the idea that you would rather be right to your own demise than wrong to your own prosperity. Once a person continues to say, you can't find good people, or you can't trust people, or nobody can do what I do, and they speak that lie enough, they now have to believe it. Because it's way too difficult for them to accept the reality that they've put themselves in a prison. That's the reason I'm telling you this right now, is because whoever you said that to isn't me. So you have this private, anonymous way to go back into your life and to be able to make that change privately, okay? And swallow your pride on that. It literally, listen, in the BVM meetings and all the other companies that I run, I simply say this: you must rather be, you cannot be, okay, right to your own, or excited about being right to your own demise versus wrong to your own prosperity. Be happy to be wrong if it equals prosperity for everybody. Don't go in saying, my idea needs to be the best one. Go in saying, I am seeking the best idea, but always go in with an idea, okay? You enter a meeting with an idea, with a point of view. That's important, or you can't contribute. When you bring that point of view, though, you have to say, how can I objectively and dispassionately measure that point of view alongside everybody else's point of view to see which one is better? And to be able to be willing in a meeting and go, you know what? That is a way better idea. Yeah, that's a way better idea. Interestingly enough, the person who becomes the biggest, the person who people respect most in the meeting is the one who usually concedes their idea to somebody else, not the person that had the best idea, just not incidentally. You know who they don't like in the meeting? The person who, when somebody comes up with something and they might have thought of the same thing, can't contain it. And they go, that was my idea. When somebody goes, that was my idea, or I thought of that, nobody sits in the meeting going, wow, that's impressive, Dave. I'm really glad you told us that. that actually goes to the credibility thing. It looks desperate. It looks weak.
Hey, we have a question here.
Yes.
And I think it's a good one because it's pertinent to our growth mindset segment here. So this person asks, they chose to remain anonymous. I know Dave often talks about staying in your lane, quote unquote. Growth mindset talks about the power of yet. So like, I can't do this yet, with examples of doing anything and everything in and out of your lane. Will you clarify this yet tactic relevant to being a leading giant?
Well, yeah, yet is intimately tied to the idea of hope, and also to planning and movement and not being stationary. If a person, fails to look at the idea that where they are is going to change, then they can't have hope. So, people talk about the power of now, which really is the most powerful time in life. Okay. Because now is the thing that will actually get you the yet. Okay. If you don't act now, the future is, I remember when I first started BVM, I'll just never forget it. I remember sitting in my house saying, okay, if I don't right now develop a sales program and recruit people, and build the business, it won't happen. Like, I can't just like assign that to someone because there's no one to assign it to. So I literally have to do it myself. And if you see me looking over here, it's because Nico is sitting over here. And when he asks the questions, I always redirect myself over there. And he's pointing over saying, you got to be better on the camera. But that is a super important thing, is to say, like, now is where I capture the future. And now is where I relish the past or forget the past. Okay. The past has value. The past has value when things went wrong in order to learn what to do now. Okay. The future has value because what you do now brings you to the future that you hope yet to have, but it always comes back to now. So the power of the past is in harnessing the things that went bad in order to act now better for the future, or to enjoy the things of the past and to have joy and happiness in your life and gratitude in your life, to act now in gratitude. All why? So that you can produce what is yet to come. So I always tell people that when we think this way, we have to come back to the now side of the value of yet. But if there was no yet, it wouldn't matter. You know what I do to people all the time? I say this, okay, if you've ever been in life in a difficult time and recovered from that, oftentimes people say, it was a gift that I never want again, but I would never return, because in retrospect, the reason that I have the bounty or success that I have today is because of the challenge that I went through. But I always tell people, I say, how is life right now for you? And they say, horrible. Okay. Well, remember this moment today when it is better, because it will become better. And here's how. Okay. So that's one thing. But sometimes I ask that question, they go, it's amazing. I never knew it'd be this good. And I said, well, over what period of time did that change? I mean, when was it not good? Well, 7 years ago, I was struggling with cancer, they might say, or I went through a divorce, or my business went bankrupt. And I say, well, take a picture of your happiest moment, like maybe right now, or when you're home with your family tonight, or when you're playing golf with friends. Take a picture of that and send that picture back to you 7 years ago. And if you were at that 7-year moment and you looked at that picture, how would you feel? You might say, oh my gosh, who is this person in my life? They look amazing. Or where am I? Wait, I thought about building a company named that. Am I standing right in front of that company right now? It looks big and there's a bunch of employees in this picture. Oh my gosh, this is a picture of me golfing. My swing wasn't like that. That's amazing. And you get to this place where, you send this picture from today back to when you're in a hospital bed and your wife is leaving you, while you get, papers that say you're out of business, and that picture shows up. What do you think? That picture right now, it's in play for the future. No matter where you are right now, there's something in the future that if that picture were sent to you, you'd be so filled with amazement and gratitude. Let it happen by acting now. That's how I'd answer that question. I hope that maybe we can get confirmation if I actually answered it the way they'd like. And if not, they have a follow-up question, we can address it then too. Anybody who wants to ask a follow-up, they can do that as well. Okay. So summary, become an expert, take things times 10 in mentality. Now, I talked about this, but I didn't get into it. So this is the last point that we really need to dive into here on growth mentality before we get into these other areas. But on growth mentality, once you become an expertise, you'd say, okay, I have one plumbing truck. I want 500 of them now. Okay. I did this with the magazines. We have one magazine. Okay. We want 6,000 of them. How are we going to do that? You sold one, whatever it is that you sold. And it was not just to your mom who bought it because she loves you, but it was a legitimate sale by people who are providing good feedback. And you've able to duplicate that to the point where you have a proven idea. And now you scale it. This is where people get lost. They have a good business. They've been sitting in this business and they've been doing $500,000 a year for 5 years or for 10 years, and they don't know how to free themselves. Leadership is always the answer. It's not the thing inside it. Okay. One of the reasons that I don't fear competition is because so many people are just not willing to lead properly. There are companies that are what would be considered leader-centric. There are companies that are cult of personality-centric. And there are companies that are technology-centric. And then there are companies that are finance-centric. What does this mean? It means that a finance-centric company is like, people make so much money here that you want that money and you're willing to put up with all sorts of cultural bad behaviors to get it. So the leadership is really bad and nasty, but there's just a money machine behind it, and people will just endure that. And there are companies, because they have that sort of financial power, that can endure for a period of time. Usually they collapse, but for a period of time, people experience that and they're willing to put up because it's a financial centric thing. In other words, you don't say, what an amazing leader. You just say, wow, there's money everywhere. I want to be a part of it. In fact, a lot of people say, what a horrible leader. I couldn't stand them, but they were making everybody rich. The next one is product oriented. It's like the product is so intriguing that everybody is betting on what's to come. And they're like, you know what? The yet, speaking of that, is going to be so amazing. Everybody's going to need this once. I just need to be a part of this because it looks fantastic. And I have to engage in this. So they want to do that. And the leadership isn't even really that great. There's some famous people who led organizations because the product was so amazing, people wanted to get behind it. And then there are cult of personalities. The person is famous and people just want to be able to, like rub shoulders with a famous person so they can recruit a bunch of people, but it falls short because their fame doesn't mean good leadership. But a leadership centric company is not a company that necessarily has any of those things. Like, why is it that I use plumbing? And I want to tell you one of the reasons that I'm thinking about this is because I just read an article. And was it in Tampa? I maybe you read this or not, Nico? And I have to go back and look, but this plumbing company expanded, and I think they just sold for $200 million, something like that. It's huge. Well, how many people have one truck and are just trying to make money? And they're working 7 days a week, answering emergency calls and doing all the paperwork themselves. In essence, they're both plumbing, but one of them is doing it at a massively high level from their home, wearing a nice suit or a t-shirt while on the phone or the golf course, and they've got 500 trucks all turning a wrench. Okay, what's the difference between these two? That's what we're talking about. Think times 1,000. Every single thing you do, you ask yourself, could I do this times 1,000? Here's the biggest mindset trap that people get on this. They say, I'm going to work harder and longer. That's how I'm going to build my business. I just want to tell you, anytime you pick a finite resource as the way you're going to grow, you can only grow as much as that finite resource. If you work 8 hours a week and you say, I'm going to work 16 now, the most you can probably maximize from that is doubling your volume, but probably not, because you become less efficient when you work more than that because you become tired. To say that the entrepreneur that you know in your life, by the way, who has a big house and has tens of millions or hundreds of millions or is a billionaire, to believe that that person works 1 billion times more than the person who is not a billionaire is just not true. There's 24 hours in a day. The most successful entrepreneurs aren't working 24 hours a day. And if they were working 24 hours a day and that was the key to their success, it would mean they could only be 3 times as successful as you. And it's just not what happens. They leverage everything. They take it times 1,000. So if you said to yourself, listen, We're paying commissions right now by hand. Hopefully you're not, but that still happens. I walk into a small business and I'll hear people are doing it. I'm paying commissions by hand. Got a bunch of people who are doing an Excel spreadsheet. I'm like, listen, you can't expand. If you want 1,000 sales reps selling your product and you think you're going to do it by hand like that, you're going to need 1,000 people doing that formula, and you can't. There's a program out there where you can press a button and you can send it to all 1,000 employees in less time than it takes for you to do one of those math formulas by hand. And I actually did that in one of my companies. The person said, no, that's not true. Our pay is so unique that there is no program for that. I said, oh my goodness. They put a man on the moon in 1969. We can do whatever commission program you want to do. Let's hire a developer and they'll just program it. And they did. And no second flat. Okay. So the answer is there. You just have to know that it's there. What are you doing today that you could do times 1,000?